All right, something interesting happened just a few moments ago. Donald Trump was doing an interview this morning where he was talking about the Al Smith charity dinner that he spoke at last night. At the dinner, he complained about the fact that he wasn't allowed to use a teleprompter. But just a few moments ago, he also explained where he got help writing some of the jokes. Listen.
Your material is real funny. Who wrote it? Who helped you with it?
Well, I've had a lot of people helping. A couple of people from Fox, actually. I shouldn't say that, but they wrote some jokes. And for the most part, I didn't like any of them.
Couple people from Fox helped me write the jokes. So with us now, former press secretary to then Vice President Joe Biden, Kendra Barkoff, and Republican strategist Doug Heye. Kendra, people from Saturday Night Live, which is a comedy show, will occasionally help, I know, Democratic candidates write some jokes. But people from Fox, which is ostensibly, at least they have the word news in their station, people from Fox News helping Donald Trump write jokes for a dinner?
Yeah, I mean, it's inappropriate, completely inappropriate, I would just say, as a whole. But if you look at the dinner last night, I mean, his jokes as a whole were crude, they were out of line. He took it way too far, I believe. Swearing in front of priests is not something that I would advise. Talking about Doug and watch out for the nannies. I mean, it's just, he took everything way too far. And there's a reason, I think, why Kamala Harris chose to skip the dinner. It is not something that I think will appeal to wide voters and will not help her to win the votes in the critical battleground states.
Doug, the Harris campaign put out a statement after Donald Trump's appearance. And as I said, he did complain about not having a teleprompter there. The statement said Donald Trump struggled to read scripted notes written by his handlers, repeatedly complaining that he couldn't use a teleprompter. He stumbled over his words and lashed out when the crowds wouldn't laugh with him. The rare moments he was off script, he went on long, incomprehensible rambles, reminding Americans how unstable he's become. And of course, he made it all about himself. He may refuse to release his medical records, but every day he makes it clear to the American people that he is not up to the job. This is something the Harris campaign is saying in different ways, Doug, now, almost every day.
It is, and look, I'd say two things to this. One, I take issue with you saying that Saturday Night Live is a comedy show, because have you seen it lately? Two, Donald Trump struggles when he's off teleprompter. We know that. Obviously, the Harris campaign is trying to use the same tactic that Republicans very successfully did about Joe Biden. He's erratic. He's not up to the task. The messaging is almost just a mirror image of what Republicans were saying. The challenge for the Harris campaign is voters have, by and large, almost overwhelmingly, made up their minds on Donald Trump. And so if he makes a crude joke at a Catholic dinner, I'm Catholic, by the way, they factored that in. They know that's Donald Trump, who he is. They know that's what he's going to do. They still want to hear from Kamala Harris, what are you going to do as president? So in her interview with Bret Baier, there's been a whole lot of tweeting, hashtag fierce. Kamala Harris took down Bret Baier. Okay, she still didn't tell voters, here's what I'm going to do as president. And that's what the next 18 days need to be for Harris.
It is interesting. As you said, it seems that a lot of people have made up their minds about Donald Trump already. But when a campaign just leans into something so repeatedly, you think in some ways they're trying to lay the groundwork for something, or maybe set a trap or set some kind of the table so that if he says something else or some other news comes out, it's already out there. And Kendra, to that point, Politico has a story out today. Donald Trump has walked away from several mainstream media interviews that he had scheduled. CNBC, NBC, reportedly with my friend Christine Romans, he bailed. And also apparently a podcast called The Shade Room. And I want to read this quote from Politico. In conversations earlier this week, when describing why an interview hadn't come together just yet, a Trump advisor told the Shade Room producers that Trump was exhausted and refusing some interviews, but that could change at any time, according to two people familiar with the conversations. Now, the Trump campaign says the fact that he backed up because he was exhausted was unequivocally false. But again, this is the Politico reporting saying that Trump's tired.
Well, he is old. I mean, it is a fact that he is old, and look, they're both going and doing a lot of interviews across the board. I mean, you're seeing Harris reach out to a whole new group of voters with the Call Her Daddy podcast, the Charlemagne interview. I mean, she is really going out there and talking to Bret Baier and talking to 7 million people who watched that interview. And I do take issue with my dear friend Doug that she is not talking about her policies. She is talking about her policies. She's going out there and talking about the differences between them, and the fact that she stands for democracy and women's rights and women's choice. I mean, I keep going back to the same thing, which is Trump continued to speak to the same people, the same voters over and over again. But the fact remains is that he is old, and I'm sure he is exhausted. Campaigning is hard.
Doug, importance of Michigan, what you think we'll see there today in 30 seconds or less?
Look, Michigan may be one of the states that is all the marbles. If we go back to 2016, it's the state where Debbie Dingell, the congresswoman, longtime now congresswoman from Michigan, said, "Do not lose focus, Clinton campaign. This state is important and you're in real trouble." She's sounding similar alarms right now. I'd listen to Debbie Dingell.
Doug Hyde, Kendra Markoff, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Let's watch a little bit of the dinner, and then I want to get your reaction. Watch.
Tradition holds that I'm supposed to tell a few self-deprecating jokes this evening. So here it goes. Nope, I've got nothing. I've got nothing. These days, it's really a pleasure anywhere in New York without a subpoena for my appearance. Unfortunately, Governor Walz isn't here himself, but don't worry, he'll say that he was. He's going to say he was. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep him away. That's a nasty one.
Michael, what'd you make of the dinner last night?
So I've given the props to the vice president already because of that Brett Baier interview. Now let me tell you that I think that she blew it by not being there. She should have been there. Humor can be such an effective political tool. I thought that Donald Trump misread the room. I thought that he was undisciplined and mostly unfunny. That editing of what you just showed was very sympathetic to Trump because those were his absolute best lines. And in most other instances, he just missed the mark. It was cringeworthy and it was unnecessarily nasty. He blew an opportunity as well to come in, pay respect to the Cardinal, be funny, keep it above board. He should have taken a page from Jim Gaffigan. Gaffigan was hysterical and set the right tone for a night like that.
He was Gaffigan, I will say, the level of crudeness to Gaffigan's, I thought also took some, well, I probably shouldn't say a crude word, but it took some of that to get up there in front of all the Catholics and do that. But fair enough. I mean, the sort of meanness to what Trump had to say stood out to me as well as a little bit off for the forum that he appeared in. Finally, Michael, I want to ask you something that I started to talk to Barbara Comstock about, but there is this closing message ad from the Harris team that basically raises the question in voters, or it's designed to raise the question in voters' minds about whether or not they are ready for another Trump term, to kind of stoke the fear, to make them remember what it was like when he was president for 4 years. And Ron Brownstein writes that Kamala Harris's fate in the remaining weeks of the campaign may turn on whether she can shift the attention of enough voters back to what they might fear from a potential second White House term for Donald Trump. He writes that, they had been focused on reassuring voters that she had the experience and values to serve in the Oval Office. But the consensus is Harris is failing to deliver a sufficient warning about the risk Trump could pose to American society and democracy in another presidential term. Are the Democrats that Ron talked to right?
So much for joy. And isn't it interesting that both candidates now, it has been so significant to me how dark Trump has gone in the last couple of weeks, and I've not really understood it. Jonah Goldberg had a really great piece in the LA Times, and Ron as well, saying 80 million people who were eligible didn't vote in the 2020 election. For everybody else who's absolutely going to vote, it's baked in. Each of these candidates is now trying to get individuals off the couch based on fear, not joy, but based on fear, hoping that their margin of victory lies in individuals who are not too inclined to come out and vote even in this election.